Hello, this is Tyson from TVEnthusiast. I'm just going to let you know that there are spoilers for Game of Thrones Season 4, as well as some speculation for seasons yet to come in this podcast. In addition, we will be spoiling material from The Man in the High Castle, Mad Dogs, and Point of Honor. This is the Television Enthusiast Podcast, the weekly set. Episode 2, recorded February 5th, 2015. Welcome to the Television Enthusiast Podcast, the weekly set. I am your host, Tyson. Joining me today are Will.
Hi.
And Kat.
Hi.
Okay, today we're going to be talking about the Amazon pilot season, some of the news that's been going on this week, as well as some interesting shows that are going to be starting up this weekend. So let's start it off just kind of with the news stories before we get into our main topic. There's really two main news stories that I put up here to focus on. Both are trailer releases. The first one that came out was the Game of Thrones trailer. Did any of you see it?
Yes.
I didn't, but I don't watch Game of Thrones.
Man, that trailer looked good. It was all set to David Bowie's Heroes, which had a kind of creepy, weird ending on it. Nice trailer. What did you think, Will?
I thought it was good. I mean, it's got me excited for a new season. It's not as hype-worthy as, like, the trailer for last season that they did.
Well, last season had that big dragon reveal where it, like, was rising up and breathing fire. Like, this one had, fire-breathing dragon as well, but that last one had that amazing shot.
Yeah, the last one had that amazing shot. What I really liked from this trailer was, Viserys, I think his name is, the bald dude.
Yeah.
He said something like, he was talking about, like, the perfect ruler for Westeros. And then, like, Tyrion says something like, whoever he is. And then he says, who said it was a he? Referring to, Daenerys. I thought that was, like, so cool.
Isn't it ultimately supposed to come down to, like, her and Jon Snow or something like that?
Yeah.
The rumors are, and this is just kind of fan speculation and stuff that's been going on for a while, that Jon Snow is in fact a Targaryen. That he's half Stark, half Targaryen, that he's not actually... He's not actually Ned's son. He's Ned's nephew.
What? That would be nuts.
And if that's so, then he would have a claim to the throne. Of course, he's also denounced any titles because he took the pledge for the Night's Watch. But, yeah, that would make him interesting. It would also mean that he's related to Daenerys, who's also a Targaryen, so... But...
Well, there's already tons of incest on this show. What's a little bit more?
Yeah.
Since that's why the Targaryens were originally taken off the throne, it's because they were all crazy from all the incest or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of inbreeding there.
Yeah, the Targaryens' big thing was they had to keep their bloodline pure, and so it was just inbreeding all day, because...
Kind of like the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
But... Yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited about it. It was exciting to see Arya in front of the black and white doors, that means she's arrived. She's at the house of what is it called? The Nameless Men. So those are like the assassins that,
Yeah.
The one guy, I used to call him the Death Genie, the one that said she could kill 3 people. But she just had to name them? Yeah, and he was a faceless man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's there now. She's where that guy came from.
So she's got trained to be an assassin, and maybe even a shapeshifter. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. In related news, they came out with, like, some notes, like, George R.R. Martin's, like, original outline for the series.
Oh, yeah. Don't say anything. I don't want any spoilers on that. As long as you don't have spoilers, you can say whatever.
I don't think this is a spoiler, but it's originally he was going to have a love triangle between Arya, Jon Snow, and Tyrion.
What?
Yes.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So much wrong.
If I were a fan, I would be really annoyed with George R. R. Martin that he's writing notes for the series instead of, working on book 6. Granted, I'm not as much of a fan, but I was a fan of Wheel of Time, and I know how painful it is when your writer is getting distracted from producing the next novel.
Well, I think those notes were supposed to be from the original outline of the whole story, from like when he first started.
Right, yeah.
So it's
Makes
so of course some things have changed, probably characters have changed, lots of other things, you know. But
yeah.
it was just recently leaked out, those notes. So some stuff is supposed to be on a similar trajectory to where it was in the notes, and some of it's supposed to be very different.
Right.
Have you read the books?
I read the books after the corresponding seasons. So,
Okay, so
I've read the first two. There's still, I guess, a big event that happens in the third book that didn't happen in the series yet, so I've held off. But yeah, I try to be fresh with the shows, and then I read the books so I can get more insight.
Okay. Well, so here's my question with Game of Thrones then is, do either of you know what's the series going to do when they run out of books?
I don't. I'm very curious to see how they handle it. Apparently the showrunners have said George R.R. Martin already told them how he plans to end the series, so their response is they're not concerned about how they're going to end the series because George R.R. Martin already gave them an ending.
They already have the ultimate fates of, like, the main characters are kind of already known to them.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they could end it themselves, and it could actually become spoilers for the books. The show could become the spoiler.
I think that would be cruel.
That would be cruel.
Imagine if you've been following the books for, I don't even know when the first one was published, but it's got to be, 10 or 15 years now?
Yeah.
And imagine if you've been following this for well over a decade, and it ends on the TV series just because George R. R. Martin takes 5 years just to produce another novel.
And the worst part is, it came out that the next novel, they said that's not coming this year.
Yeah. It's gonna be rough. There's still some material to cover from the books. Some of it's caught up though. I guess Bran's story is already pretty much caught up to where it was in the books. So he's not even going to be in this next season. There's still quite a bit of ground to cover on other stuff, and apparently the books that they're focusing on for this season introduce a ton of new characters. And so there could be like a lot of other stuff going on. The bigger issue, I think, is that they can't really pad it out too much because everyone's growing up.
Right.
Yeah, those kids sure have changed a lot.
It'll be interesting to see where they go. I remember George R. R. Martin once said that they could pad it out by, doing stuff like he did a novel series called The Adventures of Dunk and Egg, which is about Aegon the Conqueror, who is like the one that conquered Westeros. And it's about him when he's like a child and like the knight that's kind of in charge of protecting him. And he made a joke about like, well, they could always bring in some Dunk and Egg and do like that kind of story, like a prequel bit, and do like maybe a prequel season or something.
That sounds like it's terrible.
Yeah.
But the problem there is that, of course, is that, you have fans that are just utterly addicted, and they need to see what's happening next with these characters they like, and then to go back and just not see any of them. I mean, this isn't like the Spartacus prequel. When Spartacus did a prequel, it was still most of the cast. It just wasn't Spartacus. He was like the only person that wasn't in it in that prequel season. But
Right.
It was like all the supporting characters and everything, it was all still them.
It still worked.
Yeah, and this would be like thousands of years before, just completely different.
I mean, I would like to see, like, some stuff about, like, from Aegon's conquest and stuff. I read all about that. That's totally awesome material to do, but I don't think it would work because we're so invested in the characters we're following currently that it just wouldn't work to go do that,
I think that would work better in the way that they're doing Better Call Saul now, where like, it's like a spin-off that comes after the series ends.
Right, they could do a spin-off and have it be about Aegon or, some other characters, in that era, and do that in a spin-off, but not in the main series.
Yeah, that would be troublesome. I know I'd be kind of pissed, but
Yeah.
I might just turn to the books to that point and just say, I'm just going to catch up because I need to know what's going on. But yeah, I'm excited about the season. I think in the trailer, the stuff that had me the most excited was we got to see some of the Sand Snakes who are Oberyn's daughters, and Oberyn,
Oh, yes.
just completely fell in love with him last season. Everybody was shocked by some of the big deaths that happened. His was the one that got me the hardest.
That really got me. It's amazing how likable they made that character for, like, such little screen time he actually had that season.
They made good use of what he had,
Yeah. They just totally made you, like, fall in love with that character and, like, really root for him in that battle. And it was so crushing when what happened.
Yeah, that was very hard for me, and I'm so excited to see his family now and to see where that goes, because you get to see his daughters this season, and they're supposed to be ruthless and badass as well, so that's going to be really cool to see kind of how they react to what happened and what they're going to do now.
And Tyrion's a fugitive now.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Yeah, and he's got a beard.
So yeah, a lot of good storylines set up. I believe Jon Snow's going out there to do his thing.
It looks like the Night's Watch are kind of teaming up with the Wildlings now, and so there's all sorts of stuff going on there. That's kind of interesting. Of course, Stannis is there, and that Red Witch that was with him, and she was giving Jon the stink eye pretty hard last season when she saw him, or I don't know if the stink eye, maybe the eyes of desire, I don't know, but she was staring him down pretty hard, which is not a good sign for anybody.
I think the battle now is going to be between Stannis and Daenerys. I don't think the Lannisters are in this anymore.
Tywin's gone.
Joffrey's gone. Yeah.
I mean, they got a king sitting in power, but who do they have to really support him? I mean, they don't have a strategic mastermind because Tywin's gone, and the only one of the children that really fit that role was Tyrion. And he's the one that killed Tywin and is now gone, and Cersei's just vindictive and violent, but she has nothing to balance her out, so.
Right. And her brother, he could be a good king, but he's just a soldier.
Yeah, he's not strategic. He doesn't think like that.
No, he doesn't think like that, right. So I think the final battle for the crown, I think that's going to come down to Stannis and Daenerys.
On the other hand, though, in support of the Lannisters, though, is that you do have the Tyrells. And they are strategic, and they're aligned with the Lannisters now, because Marjorie was married to Joffrey before he died, and is now marrying Tommen, Joffrey's brother.
Right.
So you do have them, they're like the politicians of Westeros, So it'll be interesting to kind of see where, because they've definitely got a lot more power in their position now, with Tywin gone.
Oh, definitely. Marjorie is actually as cunning as Tywin is, or was.
Mm-hmm, yep. So, some other news we had was the trailer was released for Daredevil, and we talked about last week about how the tone of these Netflix series were going to be, and how we were going it could be much darker, but, Marvel hasn't really gone super dark with that. After watching that trailer, I think they're going very dark.
I haven't had the chance to watch it yet myself, but I have seen that from multiple sources, and that makes me really happy, because I think it's a direction Marvel definitely needs to take.
Will, did you watch the trailer?
Yes, I did. I was so super happy with that. The fact that they're willing to go dark, they're not they don't seem to be pulling any punches with Daredevil, which is really what needed to happen. I mean, I would have been so disappointed if they softened the material up. And it's so good to see that that doesn't seem to be the case here. They're willing to do that for where it makes sense.
Yeah, so that's exciting, and that also, last week we were talking about the casting of David Tennant as the Purple Man and Jessica Jones, and how his role in that story is very dark. And this gives a lot more potential to that, actually happening or playing out in the series. So this will be interesting. It'll be exciting to watch. And of course, just cannot be more excited about this run of series. It's not even necessarily that I'm so hooked on the characters in these series. I'm not really all that even familiar with them, but it's just the way they're doing for TV what they did with Avengers. And it seems like they're picking the right people, and they're setting everything up right. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because it's such an interesting experiment, I think, the amount of effort they put crossing all the different mediums and tying it together into this larger universe. And like it's so radically new, and I think no other format is better enabled for this kind of thing than comic books. So I think it's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, this is going to be great. So I'm really looking forward to that. But that kind of takes us through the news. So let's kind of move on to our main topic of discussion, which was the Amazon Instant Pilots. Now, Kat, you were only able to see Man in the High Castle and Mad Dogs.
Yeah, that's right.
Will was just able to squeeze through Point of Honor. And he had seen the first two. I actually watched 5 of them because I thought it would be nice to kind of get an overview of what some of the other ones we didn't pick as our focus would be. So, and it's a mixed reaction from me. So, but we'll start off with, let's start off with Point of Honor. Since you weren't able to see this one, Kat, let's just get this one kind of out of the way. And it's fresh on Will's mind, too, because he just finished it. What did you think of Point of Honor, Will?
It was alright. It was well acted, well produced. It was just kind of a straightforward historical drama, and I'm usually not really big on those.
So this came from Carlton Cuse and Randall Wallace, and Randall Wallace is the person who wrote Braveheart, and he also directed the pilot episode. To me, the vibe I got the most from Point of Honor was Downton Abbey. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen Downton Abbey, but it has like a very similar vibe in that, not the war and stuff, because that's obviously not there, but just in the way it'll kind of skip around to like the servants and then the people that own the house, and the way that they're handling like, a character, and they're looking like sad and something's wrong and they announce something, and even though they have the sad face, everybody else is oblivious and they cheer, something that happened because they don't get the deeper context. And that's like a very Downton Abbey kind of trick to its storytelling, and it's very much in place here in Point of Honor. You probably know exactly the scene I was talking about.
Yeah, like when they announced that the war had started, they fired on Fort Sumter, and everybody's like, yeah, all right. And it's like...
Yeah, and you could tell, like, the person delivering the message was not too happy about it. And
right.
It's interesting watching it from that perspective, just thinking, because it's like, it has that Downton Abbey vibe. You just kind of add in the Civil War element and take out, the servants and put in slaves.
Okay.
And there you have the Civil War Downton Abbey.
Oh, I actually really like that idea. I think it's good for Downton Abbey. Seems like such an interesting cultural retrospective for the Brits. I like the idea of the U.S. producing something in a similar vein.
Yeah, it's similar to me, like, and it even has that kind of same sense of cruelty where, like, Downton Abbey, one of the things I really liked about it, because I only saw a few episodes, it just wasn't enough to keep me completely interested, but it was the cruelty of the different characters and how they treated each other, and, it's like that, the drama that kind of swelled up from that I really enjoyed. But it's similar in Point of Honor. You have these 3 sisters, and, one of them could just, is totally all about the South, and the other one's in a situation that's not so great, where she's actually married to somebody that's on the northern side. And, so of course she's not all about this, going to war with the South, but her sister just couldn't give a shit, that, this woman's husband is in the line. Her sister's husband is on the line of this. So it has that similar kind of just selfishness and that Downton Abbey had that made that kind of interesting to me. So be interesting to see if it goes on. It hasn't gotten a lot of positive attention. It hasn't really gotten negative attention either, but so I don't know if they'll continue it, but I'd say it was the least interesting of the 3 main ones we picked.
I think so too. I mean, my take is it's a good show, but it's not an exciting show.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So yeah.
So let's move on to Mad Dogs. Now, Mad Dogs comes from Sean Ryan, who did The Shield, Terriers, and Last Resort. He's a well-respected showrunner. It's actually based on a British series of the same name, and it stars, a bunch of people that you probably recognize. Maybe you don't know the names of, but, Ben Chaplin, he's been in a few things. He's a British actor. He was actually in the British version of this series. Michael Imperioli is probably the most recognizable. He was in The Sopranos. Romani Malco, was in 40-Year-Old Virgin, is probably what he's best known for. Steve Zahn, he's been in a ton of stuff. Recently, he was in a movie that just came to Netflix that missed theaters, I think, called Knights of Badassdom, which happens to have a ton of good comedy actors in it, including, Daniel Pudi from Community and Peter Dinklage from Game of Thrones.
Oh.
So it's got a bunch of people on it, and he's in that as well. He's one of the main people in that. He's in this movie. And then Billy Zane, who, the three of us probably best know now as Audrey's beau from Twin Peaks.
Wait, what? Who did he play on Twin Peaks?
He played Audrey's boyfriend.
Oh, that's right. Actually, my mind went to Titanic.
Oh. So then we also have a kind of a performance that I thought was the one that really stole the show, which was, I looked up the actor's name, Mark Povinelli, who is the dwarf actor who played Cat in the pilot. And that, I think, was the turning point of that episode. That was what really struck me. It was such a tense scene. It was so weird.
That was what got me to actually sit up and start.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. Okay, now this is getting...
It was interesting the way he entered the scene, too. It was just like, in a very non-threatening way. It was, nobody was on guard. It was just kind of like, there's a cat.
Just out of nowhere. There's a cat. And, it was, very unsettling, because you see it over his shoulder, he just appears out of nowhere.
Before anybody even mentions it, you just see him approaching, and it's like, what?
It's so cool because not only are the characters not expecting that, you're not expecting that, so you're kind of experiencing what they're experiencing, the way they did that, with that total what the fuck.
And I totally think that was that. No, it's fine. We're gonna mark ours all as explicit just in case anyway. So,
okay.
So that's fine. Cursing is fine here. But yeah, what did you think, Kat?
I kind of found it painfully terrible, to be perfectly honest.
The whole episode, or just that scene, or?
It was so riddled with cliches. It took forever for there to be a plot, and then there barely was a plot. I don't know, and I could barely tell any of the characters apart. As soon as Billy Zane said, "I'm leaving my villa to the four of you," I was like, so he's going to die before the end of the episode?
Yeah, that was the death flag.
I very much knew he was dead.
Yeah.
At that point.
So many cliche elements, and also I just could not buy the reason why they couldn't just go to the cops. Like, when that lady showed up at the end, I was like, I really just don't buy this. And then it was so contrived. It was so painfully contrived that he left the video camera on the boat and smacked my forehead. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
It was a total setup, it's kind of, that's what a pilot has to kind of do though, in a way. It has to kind of say, there is going to be more story, I completely
agree with you. It's not the setup, it's not the idea of the setup that troubles me. It's that it was done so artlessly, that it was done in a way that was just so contrived. But I don't know. Obviously, the two of you liked it way better than
I liked it from that turning point. That's when I liked it. I didn't really like it necessarily before. Before, it felt like a commercial to me. It constantly felt like, at any moment there was going to be like a shot of one of the characters' wrist, and it was going to say Timex watches, or.
I just hated this show up to that.
Yeah, I just was not in at all. I mean. Well, even before that, there were some parts I liked, I've mentioned before with Point of Honor how I like cruelty, when characters are cruel to each other, and there was the point where, right before then, where Billy Zane's character was just ripping into everybody,
Okay. There was, it was like Billy Zane being mysterious, and then everybody else being unlikable douchebags, and it was, really, the one character just flat out cheats on his wife and doesn't care.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm supposed to be invested in these people. I hate these people.
Yeah.
But I like the way Billy Zane was ripping into people, just playing with people's emotions, what he was doing there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end when the whole thing, it was very apparent throughout the whole episode that Billy Zane was involved in some unsavory business. Yeah. I mean, so the fact that, he was killed off by mobsters was not a surprise at all. But
it was just the way it happened. The way when he was shot, it wasn't a surprise, but it was just seeing that character kind of creeping up in the background, just very nonchalantly, just kind of cruising, walking up forward,
The way that suddenly in the middle of the conversation there's someone else there. It's very disquieting.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I see why you like that moment so much. But I think Billy Zane acting so mysterious is something like, this is a plot maneuver, a character maneuver I've seen used so many times that when the other characters are kind of dancing around it, kind of asking, is there something going on with him? It just makes them look incredibly stupid.
That is true.
Like, God, there's something going on.
The other thing is that the series kind of almost had like a vibe where it was like a serious version of The Wrong Mans. Have either of you seen that? So The Wrong Mans is this British show. You can watch it on Hulu. It's hilarious. It's about these two friends, or they're not even necessarily friends. They're more like office colleagues, and they become friends throughout it. But one of them just happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets caught up in this just massive unfolding conspiracy. And it's a comedy, but it's all played very like, there's a real sense of danger and everything going on throughout it. But it's just how ridiculous it is. Stuff just keeps spiraling more and more out of control. And it's a really funny series. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm thinking about The Wrong Mans. Because it's similar in the way that, like, something's going to happen. Things are going to start spiraling out of control. And you just don't know kind of when it's going to happen or what's going to be the event. But it was weird watching it from, like, a serious perspective.
In a strange kind of way, that actually makes me think of Community. And I think that's part of what makes the show so unique, is that it's really good at telling, like the kind of big, epic, high-stakes stories that you don't tend to see in a college setting. And then the fact that it's a comedy just gives it this kind of total disparity that I think that's what makes it so entertaining. Because the way you describe that other show actually does sound like it could be incredibly funny.
It's a good show. It's called The Wrong Mans. Mans, like, even though that's not a proper word, but it's how the show is described. But yeah, that's it's a good show, and it's got God, I can't remember the actor's name who's in it, but one of the two guys is going to be the guy taking over the Late Late Show on CBS for Greg Ferguson. He's going to be taking over that position.
Oh, yes. I can't think of it.
James something? Like Corbin, maybe? That's it. Okay, so he's one of the guys in it, so...
I think he was in Into the Woods.
Yes, he is. He is in Into the Woods. And he's been in some Doctor Who episodes, too. And, our last major one that we watched here was The Man in the High Castle. Now, for me, just starting it off, I think it was by far the best of the three.
I absolutely love this pilot.
You're big into alternate universe stuff, aren't you, Will? Isn't that what you said last week?
Yeah.
It was really good. It's of course based on the book by Philip K. Dick. It was produced by Ridley Scott and David Zucker for Scott Free. And it was adapted by Frank Spotnitz, who used to write on the X-Files. And the episode was directed by David Semmel, who's a veteran TV director who has directed a bunch of episodes of Buffy and even did an episode of Hannibal.
Nice.
So I was looking over his IMDb profile and it was just endless. Lots of TV shows.
Yeah, one of the things I appreciated most about the show is even more than Mad Dogs, it felt like it was high concept material that you couldn't do in a network television show, and possibly even a cable. I think it's just far out there enough that mainstream audiences would be really uncomfortable with it. So I think it's really cool that Amazon Prime is the kind of platform that would enable this kind of TV series to be made.
Yeah, definitely. And what did you think, Will?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, they really nailed it. The setting, the tone, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
They had characters that you could actually connect with. Just a great story too, like sort of an espionage story, where there's a resistance and this guy's got to get this truck with something. You're not sure what it is at first. They don't tell you what it is, but he's just got to get it to the neutral zone. And there's a story happening at the same time with this woman who also has an item that she has to get to the neutral zone. And they kind of end up meeting in the middle.
I would much rather have been in her situation than his.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely on the, if I had to be in that, controlled America, I definitely would want to be on the Japanese side because, man.
The Germans? Why is that?
Yeah, the Nazis are pretty ruthless. And
yeah, the Nazis are pretty ruthless. That's another thing also, that there's also the larger context of there's a coming war between Germany and
that's
Japan.
what I found most interesting about this, is that the whole kind of the idea of the resistance just kind of fell to the background, and it really started developing into this kind of game between Japan and Germany, and this oncoming kind of Cold War between the two of them. And, it was really well picked. I was surprised by the performance of Kari Hiroyuki Tagawa, who is in Mortal Kombat, of course, as Nobusuke Tagomi was his character's name, and he was kind of the ambassador for Japan.
Is he the one meeting secretly with the Germans?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was really kind of enjoying his character. I thought he was great. It was interesting seeing him because he's kind of steeped in these old traditions, but he's also kind of smart about the way he's handling it, the way he's kind of looking at things. He can see what's going on.
Uh-huh.
And so it was really kind of interesting watching his character and then putting that against the character of John Smith, who was the Nazi, the big bad Nazi in the episode, played by Rufus Sewell, who I didn't even realize that was him until I was doing some research and looking it up. Rufus Sewell was in
was he in A Knight's Tale?
Yes, that was it. I was trying to think of the name of it. He was in A Knight's Tale, and he was also in Dark City. He was the lead in that, and, a bunch of other things over the years. But yeah, A Knight's Tale was what I was trying to think of. But yeah, wow, he was just a vicious, cruel Nazi,
God. I was struck by how pathetic the resistance is. Do they even have any cause for hope at this point? Especially with the reveal at the end that the one guy is also secretly a Nazi.
Oh yeah. That was kind of like the gut punch that ends it, It's like, oh yeah, they're doomed,
Is there even really any hope at this point?
But I kind of like that in a way, because I like the idea that the resistance might not be the main kind of focus, that it's more about this kind of war between Germany and Japan that's brewing, up there.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's more interesting. But that they had to introduce it in the sense of a resistance, because how else are you going to create sympathetic characters to kind of put in the middle of this unless you do that,
Well, and I think also it would, if it's, the stuff about the Germany and Japan is certainly interesting, but at the same time, from an American perspective, primarily, we're also going to be going, well, we want to know what's going on with Americans. We want American characters at the center of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to be seeing how these characters kind of are affected by this kind of game, this political kind of Cold War game that's going on between Germany and Japan, So there was a really great scene in the episode where the guy who turned out to be the Nazi, who's Frank is his character's name, got pulled over, or no, he didn't get pulled over. He had a flat tire. And a police officer came there, and then you start seeing ashes falling down.
Oh my gosh, that was so creepy.
Yeah.
When the police officer explains what it is. Oh my god.
Yeah, and so those are the ashes of the disabled and elderly that have just been burned away.
Terrible.
Yeah, it was a very creepy scene, but it was somewhat kind of beautiful at the same time, with it falling down like snowflakes, and...
My favorite scene, I really liked the scene where, what's her name, Juliana finds, when she, first watches the Grasshopper video, because they intentionally didn't show you what she was watching, they just show her reaction to
Yeah, that was good, and it took me a while to kind of catch on to what was going on, because I'm like, oh, she's watching all this footage from the war when it started happening, and then I was like, this is like real footage, and this is like...
This was the big what the F moment of the show. This is like the big thing where it like flips into like science fiction.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Like, does this mean that they're going to start crossing the line of like actually being able to transcend alternate universes or something like that?
I think so. I think the conceit is she somehow has a newsreel from our universe, from the universe in which we won, and somehow that happened. Don't know how it happens, but that's the interesting conceit.
Yeah, that was a big interesting turning point there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the one I was most excited for of the bunch. Sounds like for you two as well. It was also seems to be by far the most popular of all the ones going by internet reaction, so I'm really hopeful that this will be picked up. It seems like it's almost a no-brainer.
Right.
So besides those two, I watched two other ones, so I'll just kind of briefly go over them. One was Cocked, which stars Sam Trammell, who is in True Blood, and Jason Lee from My Name is Earl. And it's about a family that makes guns, and Jason Lee's character is this total, just sleeps with a bunch of women, does a bunch of drugs, obsessed with guns, and his brother was trying to get away from that family. He's like, doesn't want his kids playing violent video games and drives a hybrid car, of course. if you're not into guns and you drive a hybrid, I guess, it's typical, but and it had Brian Dennehy in it as their father, and it was kind of interesting. It was a bit crass, a bit excessive at times with like the way they were trying to show Jason Lee's character and how he's just constantly fucking around and doing drugs. But so that I kind of could have done without. It seemed like they were trying to go, look, it's not only HBO that can show lots of boobs, and we can do it too. So, but it seemed kind of almost just over the top and pointless in a sense. But besides that, it was a decent show. It was just about them kind of this family, and there's an offshoot kind of family, which is Brian Dennehy's character's brother didn't inherit this business, and so he started up this rival gun business, and they're kind of like at war with each other, these two gun businesses. And that's why Sam Trammell's character gets brought into the fold to kind of try to figure out how to keep the family business alive. So it was okay. Not necessarily great, not as good as any of the other three, I don't think. And then the other one I watched, which just did not get me at all, was Down Dog, which is the one about a yoga studio, which has Paget Brewster in it, who was in Community, and Lindsay don't know how to pronounce her last name, from Nikita, and she's also in Agent Carter now.
Oh, play Alex on Nikita?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I know who you're talking about.
And she's on Agent Carter now as well. So it's got the two of them in it, and it's got the male actors. He's not a newcomer, but he's mostly been in kind of bit parts. His name's Joss Kasuban. He's the lead. He's only had kind of bit parts though in his past, so nothing too specific there. But yeah, it was. I just honestly I was kind of just writing show notes through. I was writing out the show notes that we're talking about right now while watching that, because it just didn't have my attention at all.
Oh.
So yeah, and besides those 5, then there's only 2 that I didn't watch, so I'll probably kind of check those out before next week, and if either of them are good, I'll check back in and let you guys know next week. But so far, it seems like the one to keep an eye on is going to be Man in the High Castle.
Definitely. That's the one I'm most excited to continue. I don't even think I'm going to continue the other 2, but that one for sure. I think 2016 is probably the earliest it's going to come back.
Yeah.
That one's got me. If that continues, that's probably going to be one of my favorite shows.
Yeah, it's high concept, good. It hits all my marks,
Yeah, Yeah.
It also has a pretty good, nice, like, pulpy look to it, you know? Like, all the whites kind of glow almost. It's got kind of like a film noir-esque, like, deep shadows, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
So look-wise, it looks really good,
definitely.
too, so.
For sure.
Alright, so that pretty much covers, what we watched, with this. I was gonna maybe we could do a what we're watching segment, but I figure we'll just save whatever we've been watching for next week, since we don't have a major talking point this time. But I kind of want to end off by talking about what's coming this weekend. So there's 2 huge shows this weekend. This is the weekend of AMC. So both on Sunday, we have the premiere of Better Call Saul, which is the Breaking Bad spinoff. It's been getting major positive buzz from people who have gotten review copies.
I'm kind of not surprised. I mean, isn't Vince Gilligan also running this one?
Yes. And
You know,
it seems really good. Like, I've been hearing nothing but really great things. A lot of people were nervous about it because, you know, it's more of a comedic kind of spin-off of, like, a really beloved show. So people were worried.
I heard a lot of people criticizing, saying, oh, you know, Saul wasn't even a very important character in Breaking Bad. He was just there for comic relief. How can you make a show around a comic relief character? It's gonna be terrible.
And all those voices kind of died down when the review copies came out, apparently. So.
Yeah.
So it's going to be exciting. I've heard a lot of people saying that it actually starts better than Breaking Bad started. So it's like,
really?
If you looked at the first, because I guess the first 2 episodes went out to reviewers. So I guess if you look at the first 2 episodes of Better Call Saul and the first 2 episodes of Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul is the better show. And that's what I've been hearing from people. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm trying not to overhype myself, but I'm so looking forward to it.
I heard a quote from the star there.
Bob Odenkirk?
Yeah, Bob Odenkirk. He said it ended up being more dramatic than he expected it to be. Like, they were originally going for more of a comedy, but then he said when they were doing it ended up being more dramatic than what was envisioned. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. I'm gonna have some friends over. I do these things, I don't know if I've talked to you guys about it, where, like, whenever there's a Game of Thrones season premiere or something, we have just a bunch of people over, we decorate the house, everything's all set up, we do it like we go full on out, you know, we did a red wedding cake.
That's awesome.
Red wedding cake. We had, like, it was like a raspberry cake that was, like, bright red on the inside, and we had, like, a wedding topper, and I cut off the head of the groom and put a wolf's head on it. And yeah, we go all out for these kind of things. But for this one, we're not. We're just kind of having a few people over. Maybe for, you know, the season finale or something, we'll do something bigger. But we're just going to have a few people over to watch it because we're all kind of looking forward to it. But yeah, I'm so excited for that. But then the other show that AMC has coming back on the same day is the biggest show on TV right now, which is The Walking Dead.
The Walking Dead.
Yep. You watched the first half of this season? Because I gave up after the super boring second half of fourth season. Like, so did either of you watch the first half of this season?
Yes. Yeah, I've watched the whole series. I never stopped. There were a few points where I questioned why I was watching the series, but I never stopped watching it. Okay, it's definitely a lot better.
Why they're still watching The Walking Dead at some point. Did you like the first half of this season?
Oh, this definitely. It's much better. It's been from the first episode of the season. It's been, you know, just leagues better than what it was at before. So it's gotten much better. The last episode, the mid-season finale, was probably the weakest point, which is unfortunate. But it was still okay. It just wasn't, you know, it was a little bit of a, you know, depressing coming off of having had so many great episodes. They had an episode that focused on Daryl and Carol that was great. It was just an amazing episode. What did you think, Will?
I'm glad to hear that, because second half of fourth season was so boring.
Yeah, it was.
I actually haven't watched anything beyond the premiere. I think right after the premiere I lost my cable, and it was like, okay. So I have to catch up.
Yeah, it's good. So you liked the premiere, though. I remember from us, we did a roundtable and we talked about that with Ed.
Yeah, the premiere was really good. I really liked that. I don't know. Is there anywhere to stream the current season? I don't know if there's the current season.
I think AMC's website might have it.
Okay, yeah, because that's part of the reason I haven't tried to catch up is because I didn't think it was available anywhere except to purchase on iTunes.
Yeah, I think AMC's website might have it up, and I'm sure they probably, if they didn't, they probably put it all up just to get people caught up for the upcoming mid-season premiere this Sunday.
Right.
If you have AMC, they're doing an entire run of the series this weekend or something.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, that's true. They do that regularly.
Yeah, they always do that. So.
Yeah, that's AMC's bread and butter. So I know they were doing a bunch of episodes of Breaking Bad recently. I remember just channel surfing around, looking at my menu, and I just saw, it's just Breaking Bad, just constantly getting people ready for Better Call Saul as well. So yeah.
Wait, so what did you say? You've watched up through fifth season, or you only have watched this series premiere?
The premiere of the fifth season, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I thought you were referring to the pilot of the show, but yeah, I haven't.
Oh, no.
Either.
Okay. No, yeah, I've watched all the way up to the fifth season premiere, so I'm caught up that far.
Well, maybe once it gets to Netflix streaming, I'll give it another go. Because sometimes it's a lot easier to watch if you can watch it all at once.
Yeah.
Which I think
right.
I would have handled fourth season a lot better if I could have watched it all at once, because it had so many episodes that accomplished absolutely nothing whatsoever. And I could have found higher Daryl.
I understand your frustration with the second half of the fourth season. That was unexpectedly slow, considering what was leading.
There were one or two good episodes in that part. There was the Grove was a good episode, and
The
Grove was probably the best episode of that part.
What frustrates me the most about the slowness of it is that I like that the show is wanting to go, hey, let's slow down, back away from the zombie stuff, and do stuff with the characters, except it doesn't do anything with the characters. We don't get anything new. There's no new layers revealed. There's no new development that's made in any way, because the show so underwrites its characters. And so it just means Daryl and Beth sitting around drinking inside of an abandoned cabin for 45 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was my problem. I was like, okay, that one episode with Daryl and that one girl.
Yeah.
Beth, we learned nothing new about them.
Except that Beth hadn't had a drink before. That was it.
Yeah, there's no character progression.
That was that giant character reveal moment. She's never had alcohol.
Well, gee, I sure feel it right. But I'm glad to hear fifth season is better.
Oh yeah, it's a lot better. So hopefully it continues down that path. It also seems to be kind of weaving things back together and going closer to, I guess, where the comic books were. That's something I've been hearing from a lot of people that read the comic books that have been kind of upset with the show. And I'm really excited about seeing Morgan perhaps again, who was played by Lenny James, who is he was in the pilot, and he was in one episode after that, and they've been showing him little brief snippets of him throughout this last season, and looks like he's about to catch up with the group, so I'm really excited to see him in there, because I really like that actor.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I really like that actor, too. I really like that character. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so that pretty much brings us to a wrap. That's the podcast. So, just to kind of say goodbye for everybody, my name is Tyson. Will, do you have any social media links or, anything you want to give out or anything you need to plug?
Not at the moment.
Kat?
Not at the moment.
So, Kat also writes for Gaming Enthusiast, right?
PlayStation Enthusiast.
PlayStation Enthusiast, okay. And, Will, you're just with TV Enthusiast right now, but you're our news director.
Yes.
And, so just kind of stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and you'll get more coverage and more talk from us. Hopefully we'll have our podcast up on iTunes and other, podcatcher and all those pretty soon. I'm working out those details, but in the meantime, you can find the weekly set on TVEnthusiast.com, and that's our home site. So check it out, read our articles. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Have a good night. Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all of your favorite shows. 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 Of all of your favorite